Today's the May 20th update on the Sandbox Butterfly Garden, and even though I'm still waiting for some blooms, I did take a look at the last two video opening shots and realized how much has really changed and how much is growing and popping up. These purple Sensation Alliums are the first to bloom. I planted them last fall. I was originally hoping that they would complement the yellow primrose flowers that surround them at the base. They're a little taller than I expected them to be, and they did bloom before the yellow, which still has a couple of weeks, I think. But on their own, when I see them from across the yard out my window, they still look really pretty. I hope they'll still be around when the primroses bloom, but it's always an experiment, so we'll see. These are the cat's pajama catmint that I started by seed. The one on the right is not doing so well. Although they were started last year, I'm not sure if they will even flower this year. They seem to be slow growing. This is the New England Aster that I transplanted from the side back of the garden, so it would be more visible in the fall and not covered up by the orange butterfly bush. As you can see, the baskets are back because I just added a few annuals that I had started from seed in little pots, and I have to cover them because the squirrels like the fresh soil when they see it, and they will dig up the tiny roots. These are Cosmos. This is Rudbeckia that I got from Floret Flower. And over here are Apricota. And I got that from my Etsy seller, and it's my first year with them. They're supposed to be peachy or pinky with a little lavender to them. This is orange butterfly weed. It's a monarch host plant, and I love the vibrant orange color when this blooms. This is a little piece of autumn Joy Sedum that I transplanted from the other side of the garden in one of my videos. In this area, I planted a new plant that I winter sowed this year called Helenium or sneezeweed. They are very small still, so I am hoping that they're going to make it. The squirrels have already dug up one. They knocked over a little container and dug up the roots for it. This whole area looks very bare right now, but it does fill all in very densely. But by later summer, when the blooms start to fade, I'm really hoping that these will come up and add a lot of color that is needed at that time. This is one random daffodil that popped up, and I'm going to leave it to see what happens next year. Next to it is a Liatris blazing star that I transplanted from another garden. And I also have some on the other side of this garden, so I'm hoping to balance it out. Next to it looks like it might be Rudbeckia, Black-Eyed Susan, which I planted here after winter sowing last year. These are a great plant to come up that very first year if you ever want to try them. These little guys are winter sown sweet peas. I put some in a container that seemed to be doing better than these are. There hasn't been much growth on them. I was hoping they would climb up this trellis, but I've heard they're a cool season flower, so I don't know if it's too late in the season for them. Next up are Shasta Daisies that run along the whole backside of this garden, but I wanted to show you that half the garden gets more sun here on the left, so you'll see that these are much taller than the ones that I'll show you on the right side of the garden. This is something I didn't think much about when I started my garden, but now that I have a butterfly strip garden on the opposite side of the yard in full sun all day, I can really see the difference in the growth patterns of the plants. This is a little purple butterfly bush that I started from a cutting from the one in my strip garden across the yard that was given to me by my daughter. That was also started by a cutting. Anyway, I'm hoping that it's going to replace the butterfly bush that only lasted about 4 years in this spot. Just this week, I added these little columbines that I had winter sown. I also spread them in other areas of the yard. But most of the day, this garden is very shady in the back here, so I'm hoping they really establish themselves and come back next spring stronger. Oops, there's evidence of our squirrel friends. They knocked over one of the little baskets. It looks like they got to the helenium or sneezeweed. In the far right basket, it's covering a very small ice ballet milkweed that I winter sowed this year. I do have an ice ballet in the middle, but last year it didn't come back as strong. It usually takes over that whole center area. So I started a new one. So I removed the basket, and this is the tiny little sprout I put in there and protected with the basket. And then these are the evening primroses that are spreading. But where these sticks were is where the ice ballet is now. Finally, if you can see right here, coming up. Finally, the milkweed is waking up. So it still will be in the spot. I was afraid that I was going to lose it. So that's why I planted a new one right next to it. But this first year, this swamp milkweed will just be leaves and a stem. So next year, it should come back a little stronger. This is a big clump of Echinacea coneflower, and that also is very tall. Let me back out of the garden. I'm going to stop this again. Here is one bunch of Coreopsis, and there was another bunch on the other side, and that's what I ended up digging up early on. And as I kept seeing the leaves, I was like, uh-oh, this doesn't look like the Campion. But that's okay, I'll have Coreopsis in the other garden, and that's fine. I wanted to add this little clip of finding the red campion plant buried underneath all this evening primrose. I had wanted to transplant it into the strip garden so it would be visible, but instead I accidentally dug up some Coreopsis, as I mentioned. So this little plant still needs to be transplanted soon. Let's see. In these baskets again, I have one Rudbeckia in the front, and I have an apricota Cosmo in the back. Over there is John Creech Sedum, next to Autumn Joy Sedum. And I have another little sedum I can show you. I can zoom in on it. I don't have the name of that, but I'll look it up and put it on the screen. It's another little sedum that's spreading. And then it's right next to a butterfly bush. It's a dwarf butterfly bush, and it's magenta, hot pink, a fuchsia, and it does not spread. So I know there's big talk about the invasiveness of butterfly bushes, but I used to have one in the middle, and it only lasted a few years, so I had put one up the front, and it stays small, and it doesn't drop any seeds, so it's fine. And I also know that the controversy about, oh, it's not really good food for butterflies, it's more like candy, and you know, it's not a native species, and I get all that. But when I first started the garden, butterfly bush was the center of everything because that's what I thought I needed. And I have to say, it does attract them to the garden, so I still enjoy seeing the butterflies in the yard. So if they go to the candy bush, that's okay by me. Last thing over here is this little Henry shrub that I added. Right next to it, I also have these chives. Let's see if you see the buds. They're really cute. They're like pink puffs, little lavender pink puffs. And I put them over here because I like to see them from my window. Anyway, the little Henry came in, and I did a little video the day that we unboxed it. I thought that the light leaves were due to not being in the sun, but this seems to be the color it's going to be, which is good because there's a lot of green around here. Where are the little spikes? They're going to turn white and bloom hopefully soon. And they also supposedly have a sweet smell and attract butterflies. So that was one of my reasons for picking it. It also does great in part shade, and it only grows 3 by 3. So I wanted something here to balance out on the other side. That's a panicle hydrangea, and it's leafing out right now. No buds. It takes a while for that type of hydrangea to make the buds. And that'll be white. And it transitions to pinks and then a mauve in the fall. It's a little floppy though too after the first rain, but it's still very pretty. Adds a lot of color to the area, especially next to all the other trees. Can you hear all the birds? We have hedges and a lot of tree bushes in this yard, so we have lots of bird friends. And they like the butterfly garden too because they like to catch and eat the caterpillars. That's why every year I save some eggs and put them in an enclosure so they can eat in peace and turn into their chrysalis and then emerge as adult butterflies, just so they don't become bird food. That is the butterfly garden in May, and hopefully, definitely actually, by the next update in June, more things will be blooming, which will be wonderful. Thanks for watching.